Emma thought she had everything in life: her own house, a career as a teacher, a happy marriage, until the day she discovered that her husband lost all their money in risky investments without her knowing. The argument was so serious and violent that she lost the baby she was expecting. He disappeared, leaving all the debts to her. 2 years later, Emma was on the street selling flowers to survive, until one day a mysterious customer appeared. And she didn't know that this person would change her life forever. Do you believe that the people who hurt us the most are the ones we love the most? It seems contradictory, doesn't it? But the truth is that no one has the power to destroy our life like those we trust the most. And when this betrayal happens, it doesn't come alone. It brings with it an avalanche of consequences that can bury us alive. Today, I'm going to tell a story that will mess with everything you believe about love, trust, and second chances. It's about a woman who had everything, literally everything, and lost it in such a brutal way that you'll question if you really know the people who sleep next to you every night. Most people think the worst thing that can happen is losing money. But I'm going to prove to you today that there's something much worse: discovering that the person you love is capable of gambling with your life without even warning you. And when this happens, the result isn't just poverty, it's the complete destruction of who you are. This story will teach you something that no one wants to admit: that love can be our greatest strength, but also our greatest weakness. That trust, once broken, can cost much more than money. And that sometimes, to save ourselves, we need to forgive the unforgivable. Get ready to meet Emma, an ordinary woman who lived something extraordinary, a teacher who learned life's hardest lesson outside the classroom, a story that will make you rethink everything about relationships and about your own life. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, from which city and country are you watching us? I love knowing where our viewers are. Emma always believed she was lucky in life. At 26 years old, she was one of those people who made everything seem easy. A respected teacher at the local school, owner of a small but cozy house, married to John for 3 years. When her friends complained about their husbands, Emma smiled in silence. She had found her perfect match. John worked as a civil engineer and always came home with interesting stories about the projects he was developing. They had dinner together every night, planned summer vacations, dreamed about the future. Emma loved the way he explained the technical details of his work, how his eyes sparkled when he talked about building something that would last generations. Their routine was simple and comfortable. Emma woke up at 6 in the morning, made coffee for both of them, kissed John before leaving for school. He always said, "Have an amazing day, my love." And she would respond, "You too." It was a silly ritual, but one that made her feel she was exactly where she should be. On weekends, they painted the house together, took care of the small garden that Emma loved, watched movies on the old but comfortable sofa they bought on their honeymoon. At school, Emma taught math to elementary school children. She was that type of teacher that all students loved: patient, funny, always willing to explain as many times as necessary. She saw potential in every child and genuinely believed that education could change lives. Her co-workers always commented on how she had a natural gift for teaching. The children's parents made sure to request Emma as their children's teacher. Financially, they lived well. They weren't rich, but they had enough. The house was almost paid off. They had a small emergency fund in the bank, and Emma had started dreaming about having children. Sometimes, when she passed by the baby clothes section at the mall, she would stop to imagine what it would be like to hold her own child in her arms. John always joked that he wanted a girl with her eyes, and she would laugh, saying she preferred a boy with his smile. During their 3 years of marriage, they never had a serious fight. John was attentive, caring, always remembered important anniversaries. Emma felt safe beside him, as if nothing bad could happen while they were together. Her friends always commented on how they were the perfect couple, that type of relationship that made other people believe in true love. It was on a Thursday in March that everything started to crumble. Emma came home early because she had been released from a meeting that was canceled. She found John at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, with an expression she had never seen before. He looked desperate. There were bank statements scattered all over the table, some crumpled papers on the floor, and John was running his hands through his hair repeatedly. "John, what's happening?" she asked, putting her purse on the counter. He looked up and Emma saw something that scared her. There was panic there, and something else. Guilt. John took a deep breath and said the words that changed everything. "Emma, we need to talk." In the following minutes, Emma's world collapsed. John explained, with his voice trembling, that for months he had been investing the couple's money in risky businesses without telling her. Stocks from small companies, cryptocurrencies, even bets on construction projects that promised quick returns. He was sure he could multiply their money and surprise her with an even better life. He wanted to buy a bigger house, travel the world, give her everything she deserved. "How much?" Emma asked, feeling her stomach turn. "Everything," John murmured. "I lost everything. Emma, the emergency fund, the house money. I even used our credit cards. I thought I could recover it, but—" Emma felt like she was falling into a bottomless pit. How could he have done this? How could he have gambled with their future without even mentioning anything? The trust she had in him, which she thought was unshakable, shattered into 1,000 pieces. All those nights when he came home late, saying he was working on extra projects, he was actually losing their money. "Are you telling me we lost our house?" she asked, still trying to process the information. John nodded, unable to look into her eyes. "The creditors have already contacted us. We have a few weeks before—" Emma couldn't hear the rest. The anger she felt was like a fire inside her chest. She yelled at him like she had never yelled at anyone in her life. How could he be so irresponsible? How could he destroy everything they had built together? How could he lie to her every day, pretending everything was fine? The argument lasted hours. John tried to explain, ask for forgiveness, promise he would solve everything. But every word that came out of his mouth only made the situation worse. Emma realized she didn't know the man she was married to. The John she loved would never have risked their future this way. Everything she believed about their marriage was a lie. It was in the middle of this argument, with her heart beating uncontrollably and stress corroding every cell in her body, that Emma felt a strong pain in her abdomen. At first, she tried to ignore it, focused on the anger she felt, but the pain kept increasing until it became unbearable. "Emma, are you okay?" John asked, noticing that she had bent over in pain. She wasn't okay. In fact, she was very far from being okay. Because at that moment, Emma realized there was something else at stake, something she hadn't told John yet. She was 6 weeks pregnant. Have you ever been through a moment when you felt like your entire life was falling apart? A moment when you discovered that the person you trusted most wasn't who you thought they were? Share your experience in the comments. Sometimes sharing our pain helps us heal. And if this story is touching you in some way, leave a like so more people can know Emma's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, because this story is just beginning and you won't want to miss any chapter of this incredible transformation. The pain in Emma's abdomen kept getting more and more intense. John tried to help her sit down, but she pushed him away forcefully. She didn't want him to touch her. Not after what she had just discovered. The physical pain mixed with the emotional pain in a way she had never experienced before. "Emma, please, let me take you to the hospital," John begged, seeing that she was feeling sick. "No," she screamed through her tears. "You've done enough." But the pain was becoming unbearable. Emma knew something was wrong, very wrong. She thought about the baby she was carrying in her womb, about the future she had imagined, about the conversations about names she hadn't had with John yet. Everything seemed to be falling apart at the same time. Hours later, at the hospital, the doctor confirmed what Emma already knew deep in her heart: the extreme stress, the emotional pressure, the devastating discovery. All of this had been too much for her body to bear. She lost the baby. The child that John didn't even know existed, now no longer existed. Emma looked at the hospital room ceiling and felt as if a part of her had died along with the baby. John was sitting in the chair beside her, crying, trying to understand what had happened. When Emma finally told him about the pregnancy, he completely broke down. The guilt was written all over his face. "I didn't know," he whispered. "Emma, I didn't know." "I didn't know you were capable of destroying our life either," she replied, without looking at him. The following days were a blur of pain and difficult decisions. Emma had to be absent from school to recover, but how could she explain to her colleagues? How could she tell them that her perfect life had been an illusion? She made up some excuse about health problems and stayed locked at home, trying to process what had happened. John tried to get closer, ask for forgiveness, explain his motivations, but Emma couldn't even look at him. Every time she saw his face, she remembered the baby they lost, the betrayal, the lie they were living. The house that was once her refuge now seemed like a prison. Within 2 weeks, creditors started showing up. Collection letters arrived every day. The phone rang constantly with people demanding payments they couldn't make. The financial reality was even worse than John had initially admitted. He hadn't just lost their savings, he had incurred enormous debts. Emma returned to work trying to maintain a facade of normalcy, but it was impossible. The children noticed something was different. She, who had always been patient, now got irritated easily. Her colleagues noticed the change, but Emma couldn't talk about what was happening. It was then that she made the most difficult decision of her life. On an April night, with the house full of debt execution papers, Emma looked at John and said, "I want a divorce." John fell to his knees in front of her. "Emma, please, I can fix this. I can get a loan, talk to my bosses, find a solution." "There's no solution, John," she said, feeling empty inside. "You destroyed our trust. You destroyed our future. You destroyed our family." "But I love you," he cried. "If you loved me, you would never have done this to me." The next day, John did something that surprised even Emma. He disappeared. He simply took some clothes and vanished from the city, leaving a letter saying he couldn't live with the guilt of what he had done. He left Emma alone to face all the consequences of his decisions. The following months were the most difficult of Emma's life. She lost the house, of course. All their belongings went to pay the debts, but even that wasn't enough. The divorce process was complicated because John had disappeared. Emma had to hire a lawyer she didn't have money to pay for. At school, the principal was understanding at first, but over time it became clear that Emma wasn't able to concentrate on work. Her classes no longer had the same quality. She was constantly absent because of court hearings, and parents started complaining. In September, just 6 months after discovering John's betrayal, Emma lost her job. Without a house, without a job, without family, her parents had already died in a car accident when she was still a teenager. Emma found herself completely alone in the world. The few friends she had gradually distanced themselves. It's incredible how people run away when you need them most. Emma learned that many people's friendship is conditional on your success. With the little money she managed to gather by selling some personal objects, Emma rented a tiny room in a dangerous neighborhood of the city. It was all she could afford. The room didn't even have a proper window, just a small opening that faced a dirty alley. The bathroom was shared with other tenants, most of them drug addicts or people in desperate situations like hers. Emma looked at that room, 4 peeling walls, an old mattress on the floor, a single light bulb that worked sometimes, and couldn't believe that was her life now. A year ago, she was planning to have children. Now she could barely afford the rent for a hole. It was in that room, on a cold October night, that Emma made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't get a job as a teacher without references, and the few openings she found required qualifications she didn't have time or money to get. But she needed to eat. She needed to survive. The next day, Emma bought a bucket, filled it with water, bought cheap flowers at the central market, and went to the street to sell them. She had no experience, didn't know how to approach customers, was ashamed of the situation. But she had no choice. The first day selling flowers was humiliating in a way that Emma never imagined could exist. She chose a busy traffic light in the city center, far from the school where she worked, hoping not to run into anyone she knew. Her hands trembled when she held the first bouquet of cheap flowers she had bought at the market. The first cars passed, and Emma couldn't even approach them. She stood on the sidewalk, holding the flowers, watching other vendors who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. An older woman, who sold candy nearby, noticed her nervousness. "First time?" she asked with a gentle smile. Emma just nodded, too embarrassed to speak. "Listen, dear. You need to move fast when the light turns red. Drivers don't have patience, and always smile, even when they're rude to you." Emma's first sale happened by accident. A lady inside a car signaled for her to approach. Emma ran with her heart racing, stumbled on the curb, almost dropped all the flowers, but managed to reach the window. "How much?" the lady asked. Emma stuttered the price she had memorized, $5 per bouquet. The lady gave her the money and said, "You're starting today, aren't you? It will get better." Those first 5 coins in Emma's hand weighed like a ton. It was money she had earned honestly, but at what cost? When she got home that night, she counted the money several times. She had managed to sell only 3 bouquets in 8 hours on the street, $15 in revenue, but after deducting the $8 she had spent buying the flowers, only $7 remained. Barely enough for one meal. The following days weren't better. Emma quickly learned that selling flowers on the street was much harder than it seemed. First, you need to wake up at 5 in the morning to get to the central market and get the best flowers for the lowest price. Then, you have to arrange the bouquets so they look pretty but not too expensive. And then you spend the entire day exposed to sun, rain, humiliation, because the humiliation was constant. People looked at Emma as if she were invisible. Or worse, they looked with pity, with contempt, with fear. Some threw coins as if she were a beggar. Others completely ignored her, even when she politely knocked on the car window. The worst moment happened in the second week. Emma was at the traffic light when she recognized a car. It was Sandra, a colleague from the school where she worked. Her daughters were in the back seat. Emma thought about hiding, but Sandra had already seen her. The window rolled down slowly. "Emma, is that you?" The shame Emma felt at that moment was physical. She could feel the heat rising up her neck, her face turning red. "Hi, Sandra. What are you doing?" Emma held the flower bouquet firmly and forced a smile. "Trying to start over." Sandra bought all the flowers Emma had, paid much more than they were worth, and said, "If you need anything, call me. You have my number, right?" But Emma knew that Sandra would never answer if she tried to contact her. People say this to feel better about themselves, not because they really want to help. And when Emma really needed help and called a few days later, Sandra was always busy, always had an excuse. Emma never tried again. As the days passed, Emma learned the tricks of the trade. The best times were during the morning and afternoon rush, when people were coming back from work. Red flowers sold better than other colors. Men bought more when they were in a hurry, probably to take home to their wives. Women were more demanding, but paid better when they liked the arrangement. Emma also learned about the other vendors. There was an unofficial hierarchy on the street. The best spots belonged to those who had been there the longest. You couldn't just arrive and take someone's place. You had to earn respect, show that you deserved to be there. Betty, the older woman who sold candy, became a kind of mentor to Emma. She taught her about the police officers who tolerated their work and those who caused problems. She explained how to keep money safe, because there were thieves who attacked street vendors. She showed her where to get the best flowers for the lowest price. "The street teaches things that school never taught us," Betty said one day. "Here you learn about real people. You learn who has character and who doesn't." Emma discovered that Betty was right. On the street, you see people's real nature. You see who treats a street vendor with respect and who treats them like trash. You see who has genuine compassion and who pretends just to feel superior. Every night, Emma returned to her miserable little room and counted the money she had earned. After paying rent, buying basic food and setting aside money for the next day's flowers, very little remained. She learned to live on 1 meal a day, sometimes 2 when she had a good sales day. The worst was at night, when she was alone in the dark room. That's when depression attacked with full force. Emma thought about the life she had lost, about the baby who never got to be born, about the husband who abandoned her with all the debts. Some nights she cried herself to sleep. Others, she stayed awake until dawn, simply staring at the ceiling. But something strange started happening after a few months on the street. Emma realized she was developing a strength she never knew she had. Each day she managed to survive. Each sale she made, each obstacle she overcame, made her a little more resilient. She was no longer the naive teacher who believed the world was fair. She was a woman who had learned to fight for every penny, for every meal, for every day of life. And this transformation was just beginning. Have you ever been through a moment in life when you had to start from scratch? A moment when you discovered a strength within you that you didn't even know existed? Tell me in the comments how your experience of overcoming was. Your stories can inspire other people who are going through difficulties now. After 2 years selling flowers on the street, Emma had developed a routine that worked. She woke up at 5 in the morning, went to the central market to buy the freshest flowers, arranged the bouquets in her little room, and was at the traffic light at 7 sharp. She knew every regular driver, knew which ones were generous and which ones weren't even worth approaching. Betty always said that street work was about observing people. You learn to read expressions, dear. You learn to know who's going to buy just by looking in their eyes. And Emma had become an expert at this. She could identify a potential customer from miles away. That's why it was so strange when she started noticing a man who didn't fit the normal patterns. He appeared for the first time on a Tuesday morning, driving an expensive car, wearing a suit. Nothing unusual about that. Executives sometimes bought flowers to take home. But there was something different about him. The man wore dark sunglasses, even when it wasn't very sunny. He had a well-trimmed beard, hair so dark it seemed dyed, and always drove with the windows slightly open. When Emma approached the car to offer flowers, he chose a bouquet without even asking the price and paid with a $20 bill. "Keep the change," he said, without looking directly at her. Emma found it strange. $20 for a $5 bouquet was very generous, but the way he spoke, avoiding eye contact, seemed familiar somehow. His voice awakened a strange feeling in her chest, like a memory that was almost reaching the surface but couldn't quite get there. "Thank you," she said, trying to see his face better, but the dark sunglasses hid half his features. He just waved and left when the light turned green. Emma kept thinking about that encounter for the rest of the day. There was something about the way he held the steering wheel, the way he tilted his head, that bothered her. But after 2 years on the street, dealing with hundreds of different people, it was normal to sometimes feel like you recognized someone. On Thursday of the same week, he appeared again, same car, same time, almost the same spot in traffic. This time, Emma paid more attention. He chose yellow flowers, her favorites, although she had never mentioned this to any customer. Again, he paid much more than they were worth and declined the change. "Do you work here every day?" he asked, still avoiding looking directly at her. "Monday through Saturday," Emma replied, trying to figure out why his voice bothered her so much. He nodded and left when the light turned green. In the following weeks, the mysterious man became a regular customer. He always appeared on Tuesdays and Thursdays, always at the same time, always bought flowers and paid generously. Emma started setting aside the best bouquets for him, knowing he would come. What intrigued her most was how he seemed to know her tastes. He always chose the colors she liked most, avoided the flowers she found ugly, and once even commented that red roses looked beautiful with white carnations, exactly the combination Emma considered perfect. "You have good taste for flowers," she said on one of these occasions. "I learned from someone special," he replied, and Emma was sure there was sadness in his voice. Betty started noticing too. "That man in the black car has something strange about him," she commented one day. "He keeps looking at you, even after buying the flowers. He stays, stopped in traffic watching." Emma looked in the direction Betty pointed and saw the car stopped a little further ahead. She could feel that he was looking in her direction through the rearview mirror. When he realized she had noticed, he accelerated and left quickly. "Could be some crazy guy," Betty warned. "Be careful with those types. The street taught me that rich men who hang around poor women never want anything good." But Emma didn't feel afraid of him. She felt curiosity, and something else she couldn't name. It was as if he were a puzzle piece she could almost fit, but not completely. One day, he appeared outside his normal schedule. It was noon on a Friday, traditionally a bad time for sales. Emma was putting away the flowers that were left from the morning when she saw the familiar car approaching. "Flowers for lunch," she joked when he stopped. For the first time, he smiled. A small, sad smile that made Emma's heart skip a beat. There was something devastatingly familiar about that smile. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you," he said, taking off his sunglasses for the first time. Emma looked into his eyes and felt the world stop. Brown eyes with small wrinkles at the corners that weren't there before. Eyes she knew better than her own. Eyes that had cried with her, laughed with her, dreamed with her. John's eyes. The flower bouquet fell from Emma's hands. She stood there, speechless, trying to process what she was seeing. The man who had been her mysterious customer for months, who had been kind and generous, who had chosen her favorite flowers and paid more than everything was worth. It was her ex-husband, the man who had destroyed her life, the man who had run away like a coward, leaving her alone to face all the consequences. "Emma," he said quietly, as if testing whether she remembered her own name. She couldn't respond. All the emotions she had kept stored for 2 years, anger, pain, betrayal, abandonment, exploded in her chest at the same time. John was there, in front of her, older, different, but it was still him. And for months, she had been selling flowers to him without knowing. For a few seconds, Emma was completely paralyzed, looking into those brown eyes she knew so well. A mixture of emotions took hold of her. First, it was pure shock, then disbelief. And then, like a giant wave, came all the pain she had kept stored for 2 years. "You," she whispered, and her voice came out hoarse, almost inaudible. John took a step back, as if expecting her to physically attack him. His eyes were full of tears he was trying to hold back. "Emma, I can explain." "Explain?" Emma's voice rose in tone, attracting curious looks from people passing on the sidewalk. "Explain what, John? That you spent months buying flowers from me pretending to be someone else? That you saw me here, selling flowers on the street, and didn't even have the courage to say who you were?" Tears started streaming down Emma's face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger, frustration, humiliation. He had seen her at rock bottom and had done nothing. Worse than that, he had played with her. "I wasn't playing," John said, his voice trembling. "I was trying to find the courage to approach you. I knew you hated me, and you had every right to hate me." "Courage?" Emma laughed, but it was a bitter laugh, without humor. "You want to talk about courage? Where was your courage when you ran away like a coward, leaving me with all your debts? Where was your courage when I lost our house, my job, everything?" John closed his eyes, as if her words were physical blows. "I know I have no excuse. I know what I did was unforgivable. And yet you came here, month after month, watching me as if I were some kind of experiment, as if my misery were entertainment for you." Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand, leaving a dirt stain from handling the flowers on her face. "It wasn't that," John protested, taking a step forward. "I was trying to help. That's why I paid more for the flowers. That's why I always chose the ones you liked most." "Help!" Emma exploded. "You think your handouts helped me? You think $20 fixed everything you destroyed in my life?" Betty, who had been watching from afar, approached. "Emma, is everything okay?" Emma looked at the older woman who had become her only friend in these 2 years on the street. Betty was right when she said that rich men who hang around poor women never want anything good. She just didn't imagine that the man in question was the very person responsible for Emma's poverty situation. "It is, Betty. He was leaving," Emma said, staring directly at John. But John didn't move. "Emma, please, give me 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to explain." "Explain what?" Emma shouted, no longer caring who was listening. "That you lost our money on stupid bets? That you made me lose our baby because of stress? That you ran away like a coward when things got difficult? I already know all of this, John. I lived all of this. The mention of the baby made John double over as if he had been punched in the stomach. The baby, he murmured. Emma, I'm so sorry about the baby. I know it was my fault. Your fault, Emma exploded. Of course it was your fault. You made me lose our child with your lies and then ran away, leaving me alone to deal with the pain. You didn't just destroy our future, John. You killed our baby and then abandoned me to suffer alone. John was crying openly now, without trying to hide it. I looked for you for 2 years. I visited every place you could be. I asked all your acquaintances. For what? To finish destroying what little was left of my life? To ask for forgiveness? To try to fix things? Emma laughed again, that bitter laugh that had nothing humorous about it. Fix. You think there's a fix for what you did? You think there's forgiveness for someone who destroys an entire family and then runs away? She bent down and picked up the flowers that had fallen to the ground when she recognized him. Some were crushed, others dirty, like her life, like her dreams. I don't want your money, John. I don't want your expensive flowers. And I definitely don't want your empty apologies. Emma organized the flowers in the bucket, trying to save what was still good. I want you to disappear from my life again, this time forever. Emma. Forever, John. She looked into his eyes one last time, and John saw something that scared him. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred. It was emptiness. As if the Emma he had known had died, and a completely different person had taken her place. I've changed, he said, desperately. I'm not the same person who did those horrible things. I've changed too, Emma replied, her voice now calm and cold. I became someone who doesn't need you, someone who learned to survive alone, someone who knows she can't trust men like you. She picked up her bucket of flowers and started walking away. John stood there, watching the woman who was once his wife distance herself. She was different indeed. Thinner, harder, with a posture that said she had learned to fight for every penny, for every day of survival. So she continued walking, leaving John alone on the sidewalk, with the weight of 2 years of guilt and the certainty that it might be too late for any kind of redemption. And you, have you ever had to confront someone who hurt you deeply? How was it to encounter again a person who changed your life for the worse? Tell me in the comments about your experience. Sometimes sharing these situations helps us process our feelings better. Emma thought that after that confrontation, John would finally understand the message and disappear from her life again. But she was wrong. The following Tuesday, there he was, at the same time as always, at the same traffic light location. This time, he wasn't disguised. No dark sunglasses, no dyed beard. It was the John she knew, just older, with some wrinkles that weren't there before and hair with gray strands at the temples. When Emma saw him, she felt a mixture of irritation and something she didn't want to admit, a small pang of nostalgia. She completely ignored him. When the light turned red, Emma went to the other side of the street, offering flowers to cars that were going in the opposite direction. She could feel his eyes on her, but refused to look back. At the end of the day, when she was putting away the leftover flowers, John approached on foot. Emma saw him coming and immediately started walking in the opposite direction. Emma, please, he called. I just want to talk. She didn't respond, kept walking. But John followed her, maintaining a respectful distance. I know you don't want to see me, he said, speaking to her back. But I need you to know that I've changed, that I spent all these years trying to become a better person. Emma stopped abruptly and turned to him. And you think that changes anything? You think I should applaud you because you decided to become a decent person after destroying my life? No, John replied. I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to know that I understand what I did, that I live with this guilt every day. Good, Emma said coldly. I hope you live with that guilt for the rest of your life. On Thursday, he appeared again. This time he brought an envelope and left it under the windshield wiper of a car near where Emma worked. When the car owner arrived and saw the envelope with her name on it, he gave it to Emma. Inside there was money, a lot of money, and a letter. Emma didn't even read the letter. She tore everything up and threw it in the trash in front of John, who was watching from afar. The money she threw on the ground and stepped on it. "Your dirty money doesn't fix anything!" she yelled at him, not caring who was listening. John approached slowly, as if she were a wounded animal that could attack at any moment. "Emma, you need this money. I see how you live. I see that you're struggling." "And why do you think I'm struggling, John?" Emma asked, her voice dangerously low. "Who was it that put me in this situation?" He didn't respond, but his eyes filled with tears again. "You don't have the right to feel bad for me now," Emma continued. "You don't have the right to try to save me after you were the one who drowned me." The following week, John changed his strategy. Instead of trying to talk to her directly, he started appearing simply to observe. He would stand on the other side of the street, leaning against a wall, just watching Emma work. He didn't try to approach, didn't try to talk. He just watched. This made Emma even more irritated. It was like she was an animal at the zoo, being studied. Betty commented that she thought the situation was weird. "This man is obsessed with you," Betty said. "This isn't normal. Maybe you should call the police." But Emma knew John wasn't dangerous, at least not physically. The danger he represented was emotional. Every time she saw him standing there, remembering everything they had lived together, a part of her softened, and she hated that part. On a Thursday afternoon, Emma finally lost her patience. She crossed the street and went straight to where John was standing. "What do you want from me?" she asked, planting herself in front of him. "I want to ask for your forgiveness," he said simply. "You already asked, several times, and I already said there's no forgiveness for what you did. So what can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this." Emma laughed, but it was a laugh without humor. "You want to know what you can do? You can build a time machine, go back 2.5 years, and not bet our money. You can make our baby not die. You can make yourself not run away like a coward. You can make me not lose my house, my job, my entire life." John remained silent, absorbing every word as if they were stab wounds. "Since you can't do any of that," Emma continued, "then you can't do anything. Absolutely nothing. Because some things can't be fixed, John. Some wounds don't heal. Some mistakes can't be forgiven, Emma. And you know what's worse? During all those months that you kept buying flowers from me, I was starting to believe that maybe the world still had good people. That kind, generous customer who always chose the right flowers. He gave me a little bit of hope in humanity." Emma shook her head, as if talking to a stubborn child. "But it was you. It was the same person who destroyed my life, pretending to be someone decent. So now I know I can't trust even the few good things that appear in my life. Thank you for teaching me that lesson, too." With that, she turned and crossed the street back to her work spot. John stood there for another hour, just watching, before finally leaving. But Emma knew he would come back. People like John never give up when they think they have a chance to redeem themselves. They don't understand that some things are irreparable, that some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. The following weeks were the most difficult since Emma had started selling flowers on the street. Not because John kept showing up, although that was also disturbing, but because all the emotional stress of reliving the past was taking its toll on her body. Emma had always been a physically strong person. Even in the worst moments after the divorce, even going hungry, she managed to maintain a basic self-care routine. But now, with John constantly appearing, bringing back all the painful memories, she was deteriorating rapidly. First came the sleepless nights. Emma would stay awake in her cramped little room, going over old conversations, remembering happy moments that now seemed like a lie. She remembered the day John proposed to her, how he cried with happiness when she said yes. Had it all been an act? Had he already been irresponsible back then, and she simply hadn't noticed? Without sleeping properly, Emma started making mistakes at work. Simple mistakes, like giving wrong change, or forgetting to set aside the best flowers for special customers. Betty noticed something was wrong. "You're different, dear," Betty said one morning. "More distracted, sadder." Emma didn't tell her about John. She didn't want Betty to worry, and she was also ashamed to admit that she was letting her ex-husband mess with her head this way. She had worked so hard to become strong, independent. She didn't want to seem weak now, but it wasn't just the emotional that was affected. Emma realized she was eating even less than normal. Before, even with little money, she made sure to have at least one decent meal a day. Now, between stress and lack of appetite, sometimes she would go the entire day with just water and some cheap crackers. John kept appearing regularly, always respectful, always keeping his distance, but always present. It was like a wound that couldn't heal because someone kept poking at it all the time. Emma got to the point of changing her selling location a few times, but he always found her. "How do you find me?" she asked on one of the occasions when she decided to confront him. "I know where you live," John admitted, avoiding her gaze. "Are you following me? I just want to make sure you're safe." "Safe?" Emma laughed bitterly. "You worry about my safety now. Where was this concern when you left me alone to face your creditors? When you left me without a house, without money, without anything?" John didn't respond, but Emma saw the guilt written all over his face, and she thought that was good. She wanted him to feel guilty. She wanted him to carry that weight forever. It was on a rainy Thursday in November that everything collapsed. Emma had left home feeling strange, dizzy, weak, with a headache that had persisted for days. But she needed to work. She always needed to work. There was no time off for someone who lived off street sales. The rain was heavy. Few cars stopped to buy flowers. Emma got soaked within minutes, but kept trying to sell. Her last $15 had gone to that day's flowers. If she didn't sell anything, she wouldn't have money even for food. It was when she saw the familiar car approaching that Emma felt a wave of anger so intense that her vision blurred for a moment. John stopped as always, opened the window, but this time Emma didn't go to him. She yelled from the sidewalk, "Go away! For God's sake, John, leave me alone!" He got out of the car in the rain and walked to her. "Emma, you're not well. You're pale, shaking." "I'm shaking with anger. Anger at you, anger at myself for letting you affect me like this. You need to get out of this rain. You're going to get sick." "And what do you have to do with that?" Emma yelled, pushing him when he tried to approach. "You're not my husband anymore. You're not my family anymore. You're nothing to me." The argument attracted attention from pedestrians who were running because of the rain. Emma didn't care. All the anger and frustration accumulated over the past months exploded at once. "I hate you," she yelled, hitting John's chest with her fists. "I hate you for destroying our life. I hate you for disappearing when I needed you most. I hate you for coming back now." John took the blows without defending himself, letting Emma discharge all her fury on him. When she finally stopped, breathless and soaked, she realized she was crying. She didn't know when the tears had started. "I just wanted to have my life back," she whispered. "I just wanted none of this to have happened." It was at that moment that Emma felt the world spinning around her. The lack of food, the lack of sleep, the emotional stress, everything combined like a perfect storm. She saw John running toward her, saw the ground approaching, heard distant voices screaming, and then everything went black. When Emma woke up, she was in a hospital bed. The first thing she saw was John sitting in a chair beside the bed, wearing dry clothes and a worried expression. "You fainted in the rain," he explained when he saw she was awake. "I brought you to the hospital." Emma tried to sit up, but felt immediate dizziness. "I don't have money for a hospital. I already took care of that. I don't want your charity." "Emma," John said, his voice loaded with emotion. "The doctor said you're malnourished, severely malnourished. When was the last time you had a decent meal?" Emma didn't answer. She didn't want to admit she couldn't remember. "Think with me. Have you ever reached a point where emotional stress affected your physical health so much that you needed medical help? How was it dealing with that? Share your experience with these difficult situations in the comments." Emma stayed in the hospital for 3 days. 3 days she couldn't afford, in a room John had arranged, eating food she couldn't pay for. Every minute, There was one more humiliation, one more debt to the man she hated most in the world. The doctors said she had severe malnutrition, anemia, and clear signs of prolonged stress. She needed rest, adequate nutrition, and medical follow-up. Things Emma knew she couldn't have when she left there. John showed up every day, always carrying fresh flowers that he exchanged for the wilted arrangements from the day before. Emma pretended to sleep most of the time, but sometimes couldn't avoid short, tense conversations. "The doctor said you can be discharged tomorrow," John said on the afternoon of the third day, arranging yellow daisies in the vase beside the bed. "Great. How much do I owe?" "Emma, how much do I owe, John?" "Because I'm going to pay every penny. It might take years. It might take the rest of my life, but I'm going to pay." John sighed and sat in the chair that had practically become his from spending so much time there. "You don't owe me anything. I don't accept charity, especially yours. It's not charity. It's my responsibility. If I hadn't appeared in your life again, you wouldn't have gotten sick." Emma finally looked at him directly. John was different from the past few days. He seemed more determined, as if he had made some important decision. "I want to make a proposal," he said, straightening up in the chair. "No. You don't even know what I'm going to propose." "It doesn't matter. The answer is no." John took a deep breath. "Emma, you need to get off the street. You need a stable job, a decent place to live, regular food. And you think I don't know that? You think I chose this life. I know you didn't choose it. I know it was my fault. That's why I want to offer a solution." Emma laughed, but it was a laugh without humor. "Let me guess. You want me to come back to you. You want me to forget everything that happened and pretend we're a happy couple." "No," John said, surprising her. "I'm not stupid enough to think that's possible, and even if it were, you wouldn't be happy with me." "Not after everything I did." Emma frowned. That wasn't what she expected to hear. "So, what are you proposing?" John got up and walked to the room's window. Outside, the city's normal life continued, people coming and going, with their routines, their jobs, their organized lives. Everything Emma had lost. "My civil engineering company is growing," he said, still looking out the window. "We're taking on big residential projects, luxury houses, high-end apartments. And I realized we're losing contracts because we don't offer interior design." Emma waited for him to continue, suspicious of where this was going. "You always had talent for decoration. Remember how beautiful our house was? How you could make any environment cozy and elegant at the same time? John, I want to hire you," he said, turning to look at her. "I want you to coordinate the interior design department of my company." Emma was silent for a long moment, processing the proposal. "Are you crazy?" "I'm being practical. You need a job. I need someone with design talent. It's a solution that benefits both of us." "It's a solution that benefits your guilty conscience," Emma corrected. "Ooh, you think that by giving me a job, you'll feel better about destroying my life." John returned to the chair and sat on the edge, leaning forward. "Emma, I'm not offering this out of pity. I'm offering it because you're good at what you do. You always were. I'm a flower seller, John. That's what I've been doing for 2 years. And before that, you were a teacher. And before that, you studied visual arts in college. And you always had an incredible eye for colors, textures, composition." Emma hated the fact that he still remembered these details about her. She hated that he knew exactly what her strengths were. "What would the salary be?" she asked, hating herself for considering the proposal. $60,000 a year, to start, with possibility of raises based on performance. Emma almost choked. 60,000 was more than she earned as a teacher. It was more than she could earn selling flowers in 10 years. And what would be the catch? "There's no catch. There's always a catch with you, John." He took a deep breath, as if preparing to say something difficult. "The only condition is that you have to be willing to work with me professionally, not as ex-wife and ex-husband, as co-workers. And you think that's possible? I think we have to try. Because the alternative is you going back to the street, and I can't watch that happen again." Emma closed her eyes. The proposal was too tempting to be true. A well-paying job, using skills she had but had never explored professionally, a chance to get out of poverty once and for all. But working with John every day, seeing his face constantly, pretending she could treat him like a simple boss? "I need to think," she said finally. "Of course. You have all the time you need. And if I accept," Emma continued, "I want to make one thing very clear. This doesn't mean forgiveness. It doesn't mean we're friends. It doesn't mean I forgot what you did to me. I understand. It just means I need to survive. And if this is the only way to get out of the situation you put me in, then I'll consider it." John nodded. "That's all I can ask for." Emma looked at him for a long moment. The man sitting there was different from the John she had known. There was humility in him now, an acceptance of reality that didn't exist before. But was that enough? Did that change anything? "One last question," she said. "Why? Why are you doing this?" John was silent for so long that Emma thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was almost inaudible. "Because I need to try to fix at least a small part of the damage I did to your life. Even if you never forgive me, even if you always hate me, I need to try." Emma spent 3 days in her miserable little room thinking about John's proposal. 3 days looking at the peeling walls, hearing the neighbors, noises through the thin walls, counting and recounting the few dollars she had left. 60,000 a year sounded like an impossible dream for someone who sometimes couldn't even gather $20 a day. Betty noticed Emma was different when she returned to the street on Monday. "You're quieter than usual," Betty commented during a break in sales. "Did something happen at the hospital?" Emma told her about the proposal, omitting only that John was her ex-husband. Betty listened to everything in silence, nodding occasionally. "Girl, you're crazy if you don't accept," Betty said when Emma finished. "An office job, good salary, chance to get out of this life. What's the problem?" "It's complicated." "Complicated how? Do you like him?" Emma almost laughed. "No, I definitely don't like him." "So what's the problem?" "Pride." The word hit Emma like a punch. Pride. Was that it? Was pride preventing her from accepting a real chance to rebuild her life? "Maybe," Emma admitted. "Pride doesn't fill your stomach, dear. Pride doesn't pay rent. And pride definitely doesn't get you out of this life." On Wednesday, Emma made her decision. She called the number John had left and arranged a meeting to discuss the proposal details. They met at a neutral coffee shop, far from where Emma sold flowers. "What exactly would my responsibilities be?" Emma asked, getting straight to the point. John had prepared a folder with detailed information. Company projects, examples of apartments and houses that needed interior design, budgets available for each project. "You would be responsible for creating decoration concepts that match each client's profile," John explained. "Choosing colors, furniture, textures, everything that transforms an empty space into a home." Emma flipped through the papers, studying the floor plans and photos of previous projects. Involuntarily, her mind started working, imagining possibilities, visualizing how each space could be transformed. And would I have total creative freedom? Total. The only requirement is that the final result stays within the budget approved by the client. Emma closed the folder. "I accept, but with conditions." "Which ones?" "First, salary deposited in a separate account that you don't have access to. Second, if at any point I feel you're treating me differently because of our past, I leave immediately. Third, no one at the company can know about our history. I agree to everything. And fourth, this is a job, John. It's not couples therapy. It's not an attempt at reconciliation. It's nothing but work." Understood. Emma started the following Monday. John's company was bigger than she expected, with modern offices in the city center and a team of almost 30 employees. He introduced her as the new interior design coordinator, without mentioning any personal connection between them. The first days were strange. Emma wasn't used to an office environment in years. Professional clothes, meetings, computer, landline phone. Everything seemed from another world after so much time selling flowers on the street. But it was like riding a bicycle. Within a few days, Emma rediscovered skills she didn't even know she still had. Her visual arts background, which seemed useless when she was on the street, suddenly became extremely valuable. The first project John gave her was a luxury apartment for a young executive. Generous budget, client with no specific preferences, carte blanche to create something impressive. Emma spent days studying the space, researching trends, and creating mood boards. When she finally presented the concept to John and the client, she saw something in both their eyes that she hadn't seen in years: genuine admiration for her work. "This is exactly what I wanted, but didn't know how to explain," the client said, studying the images and samples Emma had prepared. John was sitting in the back of the room during the presentation, and Emma could feel his eyes on her. When the client left, satisfied and eager to see the project executed, John approached. "It was brilliant," he said. "Thank you," Emma replied formally. "You were always talented, but this was exceptional." Emma organized her materials, avoiding looking at him. "It's just work, John." But it wasn't just work, and she knew it. It was the first time in years that she felt truly useful, truly capable. It was the first time someone valued her ideas, her creativity, her vision. In the following weeks, Emma completely immersed herself in work. She arrived early, left late, studied decoration trends on weekends. Each project was an opportunity to prove to herself that she was more than a desperate flower seller. The other employees started respecting her quickly. Her projects were innovative, within budget, and clients were always satisfied. Emma felt her self-esteem gradually returning, like a plant receiving water after a long drought. A month after starting, Emma managed to rent a small but decent apartment. Nothing luxurious, but it had real windows, a private bathroom, and was in a safe neighborhood. When she put the first key in the first lock that was truly hers in more than 2 years, Emma cried. They were tears of relief, gratitude, and something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. John kept his word about treating her professionally. In meetings, he was respectful but distant. He praised her work when she deserved it, made constructive criticism when necessary, and never tried to start personal conversations. But Emma noticed that he watched her sometimes. When she was concentrated on a project, when she laughed at some colleague's joke, when she got excited explaining a new idea, she felt his eyes, always careful, always carrying something that seemed like regret. Have you ever had a second chance in professional life that completely changed your perspective about your own capabilities? How was it to rediscover talents you thought you had lost? Share your experience with professional fresh starts in the comments. Sometimes these stories inspire other people who are going through difficult times. 6 months after starting to work at John's company, Emma had become one of the most respected employees in the office. Her interior design projects were sought after by clients, and she had developed a reputation in the city as someone who could transform any space into something special. Emma woke up every morning in her apartment, had coffee at a table she had chosen herself, and got dressed in professional clothes she bought with her own money. The difference between the life she had now and the one she led selling flowers seemed like decades, not months. But it was on a Tuesday in May that everything changed again. John asked to see her in his office at the end of the day. Emma thought it was about some project, but when she got there, she saw the serious expression on his face and knew it was something different. "Emma, we need to talk about the company," he said, gesturing for her to sit down. "Any problem with my work?" "No, your work is impeccable. The problem is with the company as a whole." John explained that one of the company's big projects had gone wrong, that it was a construction of a residential complex that represented almost 40% of the annual revenue. Problems with suppliers, delivery delays, contractual fines that could break the company. "How serious is the situation?" Emma asked. "Very serious. If we can't resolve this in the next few weeks, I'll have to fire more than half the employees, and even then, I don't know if the company survives." Emma remained silent, processing the information. After finally achieving stability, after finally rebuilding her life, everything could collapse again. "And what do you plan to do?" John ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Emma recognized from when they were married. He did that when he was very stressed. I'm trying to get new contracts to compensate for the loss, but it's difficult. Most clients want companies that offer complete packages of construction and interior design. And isn't that what we offer? We offer that now, because of you. But I need something that differentiates us from the competition. Something that makes clients choose our company instead of others. And what the city has most of are companies like ours. Emma thought for a moment. In recent weeks, she had noticed that many clients made similar comments about her projects. It wasn't just about beauty or functionality, it was about something deeper. John, can I ask a question? Why do you think my projects are so successful? Because you're talented. No, it's not just that. It's because I understand what it means to lose everything and have to start over. When I design a space, I'm not just thinking about how it will look beautiful. I'm thinking about how that place can be a real home for someone. John stopped shuffling the papers on the desk and looked at her. Each of my projects tells a story of starting over, Emma continued, of transformation. It's not just decoration. It's about creating a space where people can heal, grow, be happy, and that's something no competitor offers. What are you suggesting? Emma stood up and walked to the office window. Outside, the city was bustling with people coming and going, each with their own stories of struggle and overcoming. I'm suggesting we transform our company into a specialist in fresh start projects. People who are divorcing and need a new home. Families who are moving to a new city. Young people who are leaving their parents' house for the first time. Emotional design, John murmured, understanding the idea. Exactly. We don't just sell interior design. We sell the promise of a new life, of a better future, of a home that really means something. John remained silent for a long moment, considering the proposal. Emma could see the gears working in his head. This could work, he said finally, but we would need to restructure our entire marketing strategy, train the sales team, create a new identity for the company. I can help with that. I can develop the concept, create presentations, train the team. I can make this work. Emma? John stopped, as if he was going to say something personal, but controlled himself. Why would you do this? Why would you save my company? Emma turned from the window and looked at him directly. I'm not saving your company, John. I'm saving my job. I'm saving the stability I managed to build. I'm saving my future. But you could easily get another job now. With your portfolio, any design company would hire you. I could, Emma admitted. But this company gave me a chance when I needed it most. And despite everything that happened between us, despite all the past, I'm not the type of person who abandons ship when things get difficult. The irony of the words wasn't lost on either of them. John had done exactly that, abandoned ship when things got difficult. But Emma hadn't. In the following weeks, Emma worked day and night developing the company's new strategy. She created emotional presentations that connected construction and design with personal transformation stories. She trained the sales team to identify clients who were going through moments of change in their lives. The first client of the new approach was a recently divorced woman who wanted to transform her house to erase memories of her ex-husband. When Emma presented the project, not just as a renovation, but as a ritual of healing and starting over, the client cried and signed the contract on the spot. Within 3 months, the company not only recovered from the crisis, but was stronger than ever. Clients were lining up to hire the transformation projects that had become the company's specialty. Emma looked at her own office. Yes, John had given her her own office, and could barely believe the journey she had made. From selling flowers on the street to being a de facto partner in a successful company, John appeared at her office door on a Friday afternoon, holding 2 contracts. Official partnership, he said, placing the papers on her desk. 50% of the company. You deserve it. Emma looked at the contracts for a long moment. Partnership meant equality. It meant she was no longer an employee. She was the owner of her own destiny. Why? She asked. Because you saved more than my company. You showed me what it means to have real character. Emma picked up the pen and signed her name. not for forgiveness, not for love, but because she had built that with her own hands, with her own talent, with her own strength. She had won on her own terms. Emma's story teaches us one of the most powerful lessons about life, that our true strength only appears when we lose everything and need to rebuild from scratch. Emma didn't just survive betrayal, abandonment, and poverty. She transformed into someone even stronger than she was before. Today, Emma owns a successful company, is respected in her field, financially independent. But most importantly, she achieved all of this through her own merit. She wasn't saved by anyone. She saved herself. Each difficulty she faced prepared her for the bigger challenges that came later. Emma's journey shows us that forgiveness isn't about forgetting what hurt us. It's about choosing to give yourself a second chance. It's about building a future so bright that the past loses the power to define us. Emma forgave John not because he deserved it, but because she deserved to live free from the weight of hatred. And you? What wounds from the past are still preventing you from building the future you deserve? What talents are sleeping inside you, waiting for a chance to flourish? Remember, no matter how deep you fell, it's always possible to get up and build something even better. If Emma's story touched your heart in some way, leave a like on this video so more people can know this transformation journey. Tell us in the comments which part moved you most or what lesson you'll take from her story. Subscribe to our channel and activate notifications to keep receiving our inspiring and exciting stories like this, because we believe everyone deserves a second chance in life.